And it's really that for people who come from these backgrounds, you have to actually say, no, it's not really about speculation. There is something else going on with Bitcoin. And then you really have to drive home the narrative that Alex Gladstein has pushed through, check your financial privilege.
All right, guys, welcome to the second part of the progressive case for Bitcoin. We believe at Simply Bitcoin that Bitcoin is all-inclusive. It's apolitical by nature, right? So we like to get everyone's opinions from all sides. Remember, Bitcoin means different things to different people, and I think that these types of episodes are very important because of that. So I'm going to first start it out with this preface, or I'm going to read a little bit of Jin's, there we go. I remembered the alcohol. I said the name correctly. Jin's article, she wrote this for Bitcoin Magazine. The name of the article is Progressives and Bitcoin Are Not Opposed. We believe in that. Anyways, the article says, the reality is not that Bitcoin needs to be rebranded to fit a progressive narrative. It is that Bitcoiners and non-Bitcoiners alike need to realize that while the network's genesis block was a political attack on the central banking system, that this sentiment is not exclusive to American libertarianism. This is why progressives are in the Bitcoin space, because we know that Bitcoin is for everyone, and we're going to make sure that everyone, not just libertarians, know that there's a way to exit the system and that Bitcoin could help us find that way. I fundamentally agree. However, the troubling pattern that I've picked up over the last couple months, and I would love to get your perspective, Jin and Fumble, right, is that when you look at the political support from the fiat parties, what we've started to notice is that there's clear partisan divide. It looks like the left wing, not only in Europe, also in the United States, also in China, right, is vehemently against Bitcoin, right? But we agree in the progressive sense that Bitcoin helps the underprivileged, Bitcoin helps the underbanked, right? So let me go a little bit through this, right? These are, again, it's not black and white, right? But there's a clear trend, right? The Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, Sheldon Whitehouse, Bill Cassidy, he's a Republican, Jeff Merkley, all Democrats except for one Republican. And on the pro-crypto Bitcoin shitcoin senators, it's all Republican. We know Cynthia Lummis, we know Ted Cruz, we know Pat Toomey. So it's a troubling development, but it's also not in the U.S. It's not also in the federal government in the U.S. This is also on a state level. And again, it's pushed by the left wing. New York is the latest state to consider banning proof of work mining. Members of the New York State Assembly Environmental Conservation Committee voted in favor of assembly bill that establishes a moratorium. Sorry, Phil. Sorry, guys. You guys know Nico can't read, but you can read it on the screen on cryptocurrency mining operations that use proof of work authentication methods to validate blockchain transactions. Now, I used to have the perspective that Jin has, right? Maybe they're just not educated on the matter. However, after covering this for a couple of months and seeing the same thing happen over and over again, we found a nail in the coffin, as we found the smoking gun as why we believe that's not the case. Anyways, moving on, it's not only in the United States, this also happened in Europe, right? A last-minute attempt by European lawmakers to potentially enact a backdoor soft ban on Bitcoin failed on Monday in a closely watched vote followed by crypto enthusiasts. And guess who this was pushed by? Conservative and free market liberals united to vote down the amendment 30-23 in favor, with 6 abstentions, stymieing the efforts by the Social Democrats and the Greens. Again, it's a left-wing party pushing and going against Bitcoin. Now, the argument, of course, could have been made, hey, perhaps, these parties weren't educated on the matter. Perhaps they really care about the environment. But then we ran into this article, and it really, I don't know what other conclusion you can come to other than these people are more concerned about control. Let me make my case, right? Name of the article is Bitcoin mining in Norway gets the green light as the proposed ban rejected, right? The proposal to ban Bitcoin mining in Norway was first suggested in March this year by the Red, Norway's Communist Party. In this week's vote, the proposal was overturned as only Norway's left-leaning parties, including the Socialist Left Party, the Red Red Party and the Green Party would support a ban on cryptocurrency mining. So left-wing parties in Norway, left-wing parties in Europe, left-wing parties in the United States, left-wing, obviously China only has one party. Now, here's the smoking gun. Cointelegraph previously reported that Norway is a green oasis for Bitcoin mining, boasting abundant hydropower and low energy prices, particularly in the north. 100% or almost 98% of the electricity generated in Norway is generated by renewable energies. 100% of the energy used by Bitcoin mining in Norway is by renewable energies. So if it's not hurting the environment, why are they still against it in the first place? So it's only led us to believe, and again, I'm biased because I come from Venezuela, right? I come from an ex-socialist country, and I happen to have the privilege to be able to migrate to the United States, right? I believe it's because it's something they cannot control. So really sucks. I know that, of course, this doesn't represent all left-wingers. It doesn't represent all progressives, right? But you cannot deny that the establishment political left-wing parties have it out for Bitcoin. And that article from Norway pointing out that 100% of Bitcoin mining is powered by renewables makes you ask, why are they still against it if it's not bad for the environment? What's going on here? Jin, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so we have to be clear about a few things here. First of all, the Democratic Party is not a left-wing party. The Democratic Party is really a center corporate party that is governed by a lot of corporate money. And much of the Democratic Party in the United States is really about presenting an identity politic framework and not really a class framework. So for them, their reasons to be opposed to Bitcoin, I think, are different from what you will see in the European Parliament. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. But in the United States, right, I think that a lot of the concern over Bitcoin is around energy usage and environmental impact. And as we've discussed at the beginning of this show, this is a major attack vector against Bitcoin. So in a way, these people are also being played because they're only reading what they see in the news in New York Times or whatever. And so for them, this is like, I care about the climate, and you're telling me that this is going to melt the planet. This is awful. It has to be stopped. The other thing now, for people who identify as some form of socialist or somebody who cares about social welfare or who is skeptical about market, is going to be only the front face of Bitcoin, which is the trading that happens on the central exchanges. So for them, and all of the shit coins that are surrounded, that Bitcoin is surrounded by. And so for them, what they're seeing is speculation. And for anyone who identifies as anti-capitalist to any degree is going to be opposed to speculation, because for them, and I think that we can generally agree that speculation is very destabilizing, even in a free market, even if you are for a free market. So if their only interaction with Bitcoin is to see speculation, they're going to be opposed to it, and they're not going to find any value to Bitcoin. So I think that's why looking at Norway and looking at in the European Parliament and seeing the parties that are opposed to Bitcoin, even if the energy sources are 100% renewable, they will oppose it because they see it as a tool of the capitalists, and they see it as a tool of speculation, which is only destabilizing economic systems. And that is why they will oppose it. And this is why it's really an education thing. And it's really that for people who come from these backgrounds, you have to actually say, no, it's not really about speculation. There is something else going on with Bitcoin. And then you really have to drive home the narrative that Alex Gladstein has pushed through, check your financial privilege. And that, I think, cuts across towards people who are on the left, because it points out that actually Bitcoin can help people, especially in situations where you're living under a repressive government that is stealing from the wealth of the people. And so that is the narrative that I think is missing in a lot of the discussion, especially in the news. So if you only see, the only two things you see when you read the news about Bitcoin is that the bubble is bursting, it's tulip mania, and it's melting the planet, you have no incentive for the left. For people on the right or Republicans in the United States, the immediate thought is like, oh, this is great because it's taking the power away from the central banks. And I'm all for deregulating. Let's deregulate, let's deregulate. I mean, part of that fits into the neoliberal narrative. And so for them, like, this is great. It makes it a little bit easier for them to see the appeal of Bitcoin. Although I also don't believe that they necessarily fully grasp the benefits of Bitcoin, but it's a little bit of an easier path for them to get into Bitcoin. Now, there are some Democrats who do like crypto in general, like Cory Booker, for example, and Ro Khanna. He's in the House of Representatives. Cory Booker is in the Senate. So, and there is like a congressional cryptocurrency caucus that at least I think half of the members are from the Democratic Party. So it's not exactly true that there is a full divide across party lines in this case. So I don't think it's necessarily that nefarious. I think it's just that the narrative that needs to reach this particular group is not as mainstream as it should be in terms of the content that is produced around Bitcoin.
Oh, beautiful answer, and I really appreciate your perspective. It's awesome to hear this perspective. And yeah, no, I perhaps I should have emphasized it in a little bit more. I did say it's not black and white, right? There are Republican senators that are opposed to crypto and Bitcoin, and there are Democratic senators and congresswomen and congressmen that do support it. But the trend is that the majority of senators and congressmen and women that are against it happen to be on the left-hand side, and the ones that are for it happen to be on the right-hand side.